Okay. I thank you, Abel, for the kind invitation and Mohammed for the introduction, and Gavin for giving us the new uh, new operation that are going on tokenization. With my colleagues, we are trying to go beyond and in the Italian panorama. And we are now working with the Council of Architects in the city of Milan in Italy. And we are trying to innovate the possibility of changing the value of the land exchange development rights. And so today I'll present this contribution that's about the financialization of development rights, tokenizing exchange model to counter land rent dynamics. I am associate professor at the University of Turin in Italy. I'm now also rector's delegate for digitalization, development, management, and sustainable built environment at the university. And so I'm trying to work on different possible steps for digitalization in our university, but also I'm working with the city of Milan as a member of the council of the architects. So I'm now trying to work at different scales. And I cooperate with my colleague Paolo Mistrangelo from Magellano Projects. He's an architect and work on urbanism especially. And he developed the first online PGT, that is the plan for government of the territory that we will see in a few slides. And we work on the first step of our thought about tokenization, as you have seen in the presentation of Mohammed, trying also to figure out the technological framework that we need. And then there is, okay, just to see if there was any problem or question. There is Silvia Messchini. She's an assistant professor. She's my assistant at the University of Turin, and she works specifically on blockchain for construction waste, but she's now cooperating with us in this work. And then we have Andrea Bracciali, that is my colleague in the University of Turin. We are in the computer science department. He's specifically expert on blockchain. And so we are trying to work in a multidisciplinary team for trying to figure out how to work on this problem. Let me go ahead. So, okay. So we are thinking about how the city and the value of the lands are working right now. We have, at least in Italy, a paradox. So we have a planning instrument that are attempting to ensure equity through uniform building indices and compensatory mechanism, but the land values are now still deeply unequal. And these imbalances produce speculative behaviors, distort planning objective, and reinforce the concentration of land rent in high value areas. And I'm not sure you're aware, but in the last month, in the municipality of Milan, we had a lot of problem of speculative behaviors. The municipality was stuck, and there was a lot of problem for understanding how to regulate and try to be more transparent in the process of new construction, land acquisition, and so on. So for that reason, we wanted to work in this direction. And our question is, can blockchain-based tokenization help to redistribute value and create a more transparent, dynamic, and fair urban economy? So just briefly to understand the regulatory organization that we have now, we had before the PRG, General Regulatory Plan, that is a traditional urban planning tool, primarily prescriptive, that was defining in detail the intended uses and building methods for the various areas in the territory. And now we shifted to the PGT, the Territorial Governance Plan. That is a more recent tool introduced by the regional laws, and it replaced the PRG. The PGT is characterized by a greater focus on sustainability, urban regeneration, and reducing land consumption. It is divided into 3 different other small plans to try to be more effective on the territory, with the plan document, the service plan, and the rule plan. But I don't want to go too much in deep on that, but it's important to understand because the vision on the development rights changing between the two tools, two instruments, let's say. So both the PGT and PRG influence urbanization cost in the same way. So they define the urban destination of the areas and their building potential. So how much surface you can construct in a specific area. On the right side, you can see the city of Milan in the PGT online, created by Paolo, as I told you, where we can see the difference on the areas. We have a city center where, of course, we have more value of the land, a dense construction, and small possibility to intervene. However, there are a lot of transformation in the city, and the big firm are working on that. And other areas in the peripheral areas that are more available for construction, but they are not so attractive for the investors. And so there is a very high difference on distribution of this kind of value, as we will see in a moment. So both the PRG and PGT determine the urban load. So they establish whether an area is buildable, agricultural, or intended for services, and with which indices and parameters. And they are also based for the calculation. So the urbanization charge are calculated based on the extent of the building work and the resulting urban load generated. For example, if there is a need of new infrastructure or services. And then they define the function. So the rule containing the RAIN determine whether a project is subject to the payment of charges and to what extent. And the municipalities, based on the provision of this plan, establish the tables and parameters for calculating the charges themselves. So they define how much an investor needs to pay for constructing that area. In summary, while the PGT introduces a more modern and flexible approach than the PRG, both are key instruments that define the rules according to which urbanization charges are calculated and required for each new building project. In the PRG, we added zoning, we had a maximum index depending on the area, with the definition of where, what, and how much is possible to build. In the PGT, the new instrument, we have an indifference and single equalized index. So they try to equalize the value of the of the different areas with a unique index of 0.35 square meter on square meter that you can construct on the area. So, but the different land values undermine the equalization model. So in reality, in this moment, we have a different value. Here you can see on the map of Milan, the auction-based value of the municipal property construction rights, depending on the 5 zone of a uniform development. And there is a restriction on the allocation of building rights to the outskirt only. And so as you can see, the values are really different from the metropolitan area, we call it, and the central area of Milan. So in the regulation, we have these plans that I was describing before with tables where there is the indexes that are used for this evaluation of the value in the different areas here for the law of Lombardy region where Milan is located. And there is the determination of the minimum acquisition value for the urban area. And based on the results of the calculation, we have 41 homogeneous areas considered. And the market value of a vacant area is determined taking into account the legal buildability of the area. That is the index that we have seen before. But we have the incidence here of the price of the land compared to the value that the land has in the selling. So when you need to construct a building on an area, you have a part of the cost for acquiring the land that has a high incidence. Of course, in the city center, here we can see that is 44%, while in the peripheral areas, we have like 25%. So the cost of the land is really heavy for the investors. For the investors, but let's say for regulating the market value of the land when the new developments are taking place. Here there is a table just to show you the range of the value that we have. We have in the area 5, let's say, like 800 euros per square meter of surface. And in the area number 1, let's say in the city center, this value is 6,000. So the range is very different. And so you can really understand how is really different the distribution of these values. And so in reality, the investors are struggling to try to construct in some part of the city. Only the big investors can do it, and out of the city in the metropolitan area, the attractiveness of this construction is could be higher because the price is low, but the value of the construction, the new development is really low. So it's not so equal. Here we can see how the value of the development rights, the DR, we call it, changed during time from 2014 to 2023. And so they are increasing, of course, because the city is becoming more attractive. And here we have the data of the Urban Planning General Directorate, where we have these development rights that are registered in the Register of Development Rights Transfer. So also in this case, we have a legal part that is still defined by a notary council. And so there is a barrier on how to legally then introduce the proposal that we are doing. But let's say. Here we can see different way in which the development rights are originated. In part, they come from indirectly related land acquisition, new public service, part of this square meter resulting from the PGT rules and applied to directly related properties or demolished buildings, the localization, mandatory urban planning programs, or indirectly related municipal areas, and so on, and also part of land that the municipality of Milan sold to implement a Reinventing Cities project. Maybe you know this program of development of abandoned area in the city, because it's a world project where some areas are renovated through financial incentive by the municipalities. And we had 2 editions in the city of Milan of this kind of program to try to renovate the city. And so we have a lot of, let's say, square meter that are available for the construction. Here are the cost of the development rights. We have in this moment 300,000 square meter of rights that have been already used and are in the process of being applied, or let's say landed, and they are pending for the final approval of the planning permit. And we have 132,000 square meters of development rights that are still unused and available. So here is a visualization in the PGT online, where we can see how, let's say, to transfer these development rights from the peripheral area to the city center. And the problem is that in this moment, the building rights or development rights exchange is not easy to do, let's say, because they do not constitute the real property rights in this moment, and there is the obligation to register on the Italian Civil Code. We have a reduced number of actors, and there is a preference for the bulk sale of building rights and this differential value of the area. So we try to understand how to equalize the exchange between areas with different market values. And we try to do it by indexing the average market value of the sector. And we are trying to propose this index that becomes a multiplier if the building rights or development rights as when it's in the takeoff phase, and the divider of the building rights during the landing phase. Let's try to understand better. So we want to shift from the equalization to the tokenization approach, because the traditional approach of equalization, that in Italian is the perequazione, in urban planning shifted from zoning-based master plans in the PRG to integrated territorial plans in the PGT, introduced a single transferable building index, the 0.35 square meter on square meter that we have seen. And it was an attempt to balance opportunity across the city. However, as we have seen in many Italian metropolitan contexts, the equalization model fails when the market value differential between zones are too large. So development rights generated in the peripheral area may not have the same market potential as one located centrally. The result is a system that remains theoretically equal but economically unequal. So it's where tokenization offers an alternative logic. So the idea is to tokenize these development rights. In the model, each development rights becomes a digital token representing a quantifiable transferable portion of urban potential. These tokens are indexed to local market values. And when a right originates from a low value area, in the original area or the takeoff area, it receives a multiplier that enhances its equivalence. When it's applied on a high value area, in the destination area or landing area, it receives a divisor that normalizes its impact. This dynamic relationship between takeoff and landing areas ensure a value parity across exchanges. And so here is an example of the table that we are proposing with the indexes for landing and for the takeoff. So, for example, 1 square meter of rides generated in the peripheral area might be equal to 2.5 square meter in the central area, while 1 square meter from the high value zone in the city center might correspond to only 0.5 square meter in the peripheral transfer. So through algorithmic indexing, tokenization transforms equalization from a bureaucratic rule into a self-balancing market mechanism. And here is a simulation in the plan of Milan with this development rights value that you can see in the distribution and with the color code that let you understand where the more value is in this moment. And here how they change. For example, as I was saying, if we have a 1 square meter in the central area, can generate 2.46 square meter out of the city center, or 1 square meter out of the center can generate 0.41 square meter in the landing area in the center. You can also then connect this PGT online, where you can find the data of the city that we are using for the simulation, that we are using also for supporting the practitioners in their formation about the PGT rules. And so what is the impact of this kind of model? So we can define the boundaries of the sector and how to calculate the indices that weigh the different market values. We can create a metropolitan or intermunicipal agreement with the different area, the central municipal central area of Milan and the metropolitan area, on the willingness to transfer the development rights to other municipality or receive these rights outside one's municipal perimeter. And maybe we can establish a single register of building rights that integrates the value of the index, also functional to trends over time. So it can be dynamic and not static indices. And we could think about how to blockchain this evaluation and calculation that can be probative for the legal registry. So what could be the effects? We can have the municipality could use the development rights as a currency to reward virtuous behavior that benefit the city. For example, if a developer or investor can create a park in the same place of the construction, so we can have we can maybe reduce the impact of the development rights for this kind of construction. We can intervene in the development rights market, and not only by certifying them, but also by purchasing them after the issuance for the municipality, promoting the municipality itself as a price maker, encouraging a greater granularity in exchanges. We can abandon the single index in favor of a more structural redistribution of the development rights. rewarding area with services at the expenses of a buildable areas, for example, and certifying the development rights of the buildings whose surface, constructable, buildable surface, is to be recovered only after demolition and remediation have been carried out. So how we can use the blockchain as smart contract. This tokenized market can be governed by a smart contract with the blockchain-based metropolitan register, with the smart contract that can define and code the origin and destination area, the indexes, and the verification of regulatory compliance. And we could have the transaction in the decentralized ledger. This rule makes the exchange automatic, transparent, and tamper-proof. We had a lot of problem of untransparent deals in this kind of field and sector. So the possibility to track the valuation and the acquisition and the transaction is really important for our construction market. And the municipalities no longer act as a passive certifiers, but as a regulatory nodes within the distributed system. So we can monitor, validate, and even intervene directly on the market's right. For example, the municipality can reacquire the tokens to stimulate a regeneration on a specific area that needs this, maybe new services with the new construction or new development, or it's possible to reward sustainable and circular design practices with the new tokens or burning unused rights to prevent the speculative accumulation. So we want to have a city that becomes a living economic ecosystem where the governance and value creation are synchronized, and we make the simulation of this possible organization at the metropolitan scale, where multiple municipalities coexist with different land values. So a token taking off from a peripheral municipality could land in a central one, adjusting the value automatically. And that smart contract calculates the equalization coefficient, the ratio between the market indices of the two zones, and applies to ensure fairness. This approach creates a fluid regional market of development rights where value flows according to transparent programmable logic rather than political negotiation. Such a model requires a shared governance, potentially through a metropolitan consortium or intermunicipal blockchain register to guarantee interoperability and public oversight. Here is a bit of the simulation about how to implement the origin area, the takeoff value and destination lending coefficient for the equalization, and about, as I mentioned, about trying to give more value on the square meter that comes from the peripheral to the city center and vice versa. And I'm not sure I'm on time, but I'm arriving to the conclusion. So the implication of this tokenization is more the technical innovation. We can redefine the urban values, how they are created and distributed by tying each transaction to a verifiable data and transparent rules. We can reduce the speculative land rent by aligning development incentive with collective value. We can promote distributed regeneration, especially in undervalued peripheries, and encourage sustainability-linked investment where performance metrics trigger automatic rewards. Moreover, by turning developments right into traceable, programmable assets, we move toward a post-bureaucratic planning system where trust is embedded in code and equity is enforced algorithmically. So we want to go from financialization to ethical urbanism. So we think that with this kind of approach, we don't want to reproduce a speculative behavior, but through the tokenized governance, the financialization can become a mechanism of fairness, ensuring that value circulates within the public domain rather than concentrating in private hands, because we have these big investors that are uh, constructing in the central areas. It's always in the same actors. And by connecting the digital innovation with urban ethics, we can transform the relationship between land, data, and value, moving from the idea of property as possession to property as participation. And our vision is a transparent, accountable, and circular urban economy, where each digital token not only represents buildable surface, but also embodies trust, responsibility, and shared urban value. So thank you for your attention. And if you have any question, here you have also my email. And I open the floor for the question if there's any.